9 a.m. Central Daylight Time. I'm going to call the September Public Safety Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, are we in compliance with open meetings laws?
The meeting has been noticed to the public and news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes.
Meeting agenda has been posted. Do any of the committee members want any modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, moving on to public comment. I have, I don't have a roll call. Do I have a roll call on it? I don't have a roll call on it. Let's do a roll call so that we can get that on the record.
James Schlender.
Present.
Ron Buckholz.
Present.
Ed Peters.
Present.
Dale Schlueter.
Here.
Chuck Bennett.
Here.
All right, looks like we do have a quorum. Moving on to public comment. I have one so far. Mitch, do you have any more?
I do not.
Just Layton thing. You have the floor. Chair, if you want to share your chair with everybody. I just need you to move up so we get closer to the microphone. We do have people that are virtual.
Did you say you do have people on virtual?
Yep.
Hi, Louise Laydenton from Ojibwa, Wisconsin. I'm here specifically because on the agenda attached to the ambulance service department report is item C, interfacility transports, and 1 and 2, the operational plan. And at that time, if you would allow me, I would like to comment. Thank you.
Do I have anybody online that wishes to address this committee that's not on the agenda? All right, moving on to number 5. Draft minutes for the August meeting have been presented. Is there any comment?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I have a motion from Mr. Buckholz to approve the minutes as presented. I have a second from Mr. Schlueter. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, call for a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Moving on to number 6, Circuit Court report. Judge's report. Judge is not present. Moving on to item B, courthouse remodel update. Mr. Hoff.
Thank you. We had a meeting last week or the week before, I forget when it was. The staff met with our architect and our construction manager. This was the initial review of where we're at with the budget, with the plans that we have. So we got some information on, we're still relatively under budget, pretty close, but it's looking good so far based on the materials and configuration that they have to work with our plan. So we've got another meeting scheduled for the week after next, where we'll continue to refine the plan and the budget, with hoping to go out to bid either very late this year or early next year for construction.
When is it groundbreaking?
It'll be in the spring of 22.
Any questions for Mr. Hoff regarding the courthouse remodel update? Chuck, you got any questions for Mr. Hoff?
I do not. Thank you.
Moving on to number 7, clerk of court report. Floor is open. You have 5 minutes. Madam Clerk.
Well, with that, I can't carry it on for full 5 minutes, but I can tell you the September 8th jury trials are off the calendar. And the September 9th trials, we're down to 1 on the calendar yet. The others go away as well. And then I just once again like to take the opportunity to tell y'all what a wonderful team I have.
Excellent. Her report has been attached or published and posted. Is there any questions for the clerk? Chuck, you got any questions for the clerk?
No questions for the clerk.
Thank you for your report. Moving on to the district attorney. District attorney is not present. Child support. Don't have a report. It seems to be kind of inconsistent, so that should be something we may want to look at. Moving on to number 10, Sheriff. Sheriff, the floor is yours. You have more than 5 minutes.
Thanks, but no thanks. I'll start off by saying one of the things we continue to face is the drug epidemic. We've had some issues in the jail here, smuggling drugs into the jail, that continues. And in the community as well. It's sad, but it is there. The other thing is staffing issues. Our jail, by DOC requirements, we have to meet minimum staffing. And we have double bunking in the jail. So we have 2 jailers on the day shift so that we can double bunk. We don't need we have 8 hours at night where we don't have to have 4 jailers on. So what we have done is we're shipping the double bunk inmates out of county so we could take the 2 day shift jailers and plug them into other shifts because we just don't have the staff. We're not getting much for qualified applicants applying, and we are hurting for staff, especially in the jail division. The dispatch division, we have some part-timers that are training in. They work full-time at 2 of the mills in town, and they do not express any interest in working full-time. They say they can't afford to leave there and come here and work, but they can work part-time on their days off. As far as if we lose any dispatchers, we're concerned about that. We do have a couple part-time patrol positions. We filled 1 part-time and have another applicant, but that has been pretty weak also. So with that, I'll turn it over to the chief.
Sheriff pretty much covered the dispatch report. We do have 2 trainees there in their final stages. We did have 4 applicants for dispatch last week, so we'll be screening those and inviting them in for we usually do a shadow process, invite them in, let them sit for a shift and see if it's something they like. A lot of times we can weed them out before we even hire them as a part-timer. So we do have 1 full-time dispatch position open, and we're hoping one of the part-timers will fill it. So they're waiting for that process to get completed before they post that position. And one last concern that dispatch is having is they've received some concern from emergency responders regarding faded, damaged, missing fire signs and the abilities to find these locations. So we'll be meeting with land records and seeing if we can assist in any way in getting those signs replaced or what that process is.
Okay.
Call volume is actually down for dispatch well, these are month of July numbers, and I guess Corey wanted to know, our dispatch supervisor wanted to know if you want the monthly numbers for the previous month or the full numbers for the month. So whichever way you want them. I mean, if you want the August numbers, sometimes they're not going to be complete because we have to have our reports in a week ahead of time, or if you want the previous one.
So the only thing that that would be good for the report is just to show what the call volume is. So however you feel is the best way to kind of present the work that's coming out of dispatch. I mean, leave that up to you. I mean, it's mainly for information only. So whatever you feel is appropriate. This is it's not supposed to be an extra work assignment so that you have to have, take additional time to put this together as information. So whatever is the most efficient method to show the amount of work that's coming out of dispatch, that's fine.
Oh, you were just wondering, because the monthly numbers, like I say, wouldn't be true numbers. If, they would be short of the end of the month. So whichever way you guys like them, but these numbers here are for July. So July numbers are, for this year are down compared to last year.
So let me rephrase it this way. The information that you provide, and we get from the sheriff's department, we get from the ambulance, we get from emergency services, is whenever we go through our budget cycle, there is a discussion on what the budget allocation is going to be for the county budget. So the information that we have that speaks to it, the jail report, the deputy reports, the volume, the call volume, helps with making our arguments for that budget going forward. So one of the questions, you may get this either from Chuck, but you may get it from me as well too, is, so what is it, and I'm going to ask this and don't answer this because I'm going to want to get all the reports first, is what is the reason why what is the belief that you have that you're not getting qualified applicants? And so, and if there's something that the county board can do to address that, and I'm saying this the Beal way of looking at maybe a wage increase or some kind of money situation that we can start looking at, because this is an issue that's across the spectrum, right? And so there are politicians who are getting ready to make these promises again. And so if we can start strategically planning on what that looks like, then we can go forward. So that's a 10,000 word response to a 1 word question, but that's what we look at for your reports. So however you want to, whatever would trust you to make that information to us, you know, explain it to us like we're 5th graders, and we can work with it from there.
Okay.
All right, thank you for your report. Bennett, the floor is yours.
Like dispatch, we've seen a little bit of a drop in patrol call volume. We're down to 965, where last month we were at 1356. And it was also a little bit of a decrease from this time last year at 1159. A lot of that has to do with some of the time. We have some very high profile calls. So that self-initiated activity is not out there as much because the officers are tied up dealing with those calls. We're still out there doing traffic. Our citations, as you can see from the report, are amended as well, and they've been pretty steady. Traffic crashes are still reported in there. I just checked the numbers for today's date from Community Maps at the DOT, and we're still holding, I think it's about 190 actually for today for crashes total for Sawyer County, but we still have no fatalities. Not to jinx that, but that's a great thing to look at. Piggybacking off what the sheriff said, we have 2 applicants that are in the process right now. One has a conditional offer to be starting his FTO cycle September 16th and going through the 10-week 3-phase cycle. And we're still looking at the background in the background process for the second one. I still have officers that are currently out on medical right now, so we're kind of shuffling our feet around to cover this.
Excellent, thank you. Senator Johnson.
My report that I submitted was numbers as of the 26th of this month. The change that we have there is, fortunately, our numbers have come down enough. We've been able to bring some back from Barron County to avoid paying the out-of-county housing. It's still, as the sheriff said, run without double bunking. We just continue to monitor that because we don't want to get into a position. You know, at this point, we rarely have to force staff in for sick calls or whatever, but staffing is the big issue that we run into. With the employment ads we put out, I think we've received 2 applicants, one that I've reached out to that was potentially looking for the jail I haven't heard back from. You know, I guess the staffing is the big thing. We have one on military leave until I believe May. That's a full-time position, and one that is out on medical leave, and that'll be until probably at least the end of October. So we have part-timers filling for them. But we are down, as of yesterday, down to housing only 4 in Barron County, and then we do have 1 in Bayfield, but that's a Huber transfer, so it's at no cost to our county.
All right, at this time, I'll open up questions from the committee. So, Chuck, do you got any questions for the Sheriff's Department?
I do, starting with the last presentation, what do we pay to house those prisoners?
It's $43 per day per inmate.
Okay. That's all, but I wanted to go back to when the sheriff started. I was able to tour the facilities last month, and the sheriff had brought up, and I think he makes a very valid point about, and he presented this morning with the contraband and the drugs that are coming into the facility. And we talked about that. He said that there was a scanner available, and that this would be able to show these kind of things that then a warrant can be signed off on for body cavity searches and whatnot. And I think that's something, if COVID, all the monies that we're getting in, I would like to see us do something for whatever that cost is to pay for something like that. That's going to be beneficial tenfold, stopping drugs inside the jail.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? So let me rephrase the question so that you guys can answer it now. What do you think is the major deterrent for such a low response for positions?
Well, I think everybody's competing for quality employees. And employees, it's an employee market right now. They can choose who has the best offer. And it's total package of pay, benefits, and everything else. And I think the employee numbers are down, so they have the ability to choose where they want to be.
So
It's kind of survival of the fittest right now.
So how competitive then is Sawyer County's package?
Looking at me.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's the one union that we have, and so we do look at that, you know, when during the union negotiations. But this is not just a sheriff issue. This is countywide, statewide, nationwide. This is not unusual, no matter what department you're talking about, that we don't get the number of applicants that we used to. Same with other counties. It's not just that we are, you know, have low compensation or low benefits or whatever. We're all kind of in the same boat, and you're kind of chasing your tail when you're, you know, competing against other counties, because it's a never-ending battle on that front. But we're in a different environment, that is for sure. We don't get a lot of applicants, no matter if you're talking about zoning or health and human services or the sheriff's department. You know, it's one of the big issues. And we talk about what can we do for compensation to attract more employees. And you're going to hear this, you know, in your other committees and your other departments. You know, what can we do? We're obviously under levy limits. We can only do so much. You're going to hear in every committee. I mean, these are all valid concerns. This is not like, okay, well, let's not do the things that don't make sense. They all make sense, but we can't afford to do everything that makes sense. So that's where the tough decisions come in, as far as, you know, how far can we go and how that money is going to be spent in various departments.
So I would ask for a motion to either advance this to an admin or to the full county board for a discussion on a reevaluation of what the compensation package is for Sawyer County employees, including posted positions. The reason why I'm asking it in this manner is because I'd like to have a focused discussion on an evaluation of what Sawyer County's packages, pet pay, and figure out what alternatives that we have, because it's easy to dismiss it and say we can't afford it and to go with status quo, because I'm more concerned about the jailer, the lieutenant, or the officers that are on patrol not having, you know, adequate support, rest. You know, we're gonna burn out. We're gonna burn these people out if we don't figure out a way to help alleviate what that situation is. And I'm not trying to say that that's more important than the other ones. So comprehensively, we need to look at this. So whether we have to do a referendum or look at, you know, some kind of levy increase or something else, we need to start this conversation. And that's how I think we should do that. So I would be looking for a motion to either place this item on the admin committee, which then they can make a decision on full board, or ask for it just be placed on the full county board.
I guess I would say it should go to admin first, because I guess there would be kind of the jurisdiction to send it on to the full county board. So I'll make a motion to that effect, to send that on to admin.
All right, so I have a motion for Mr. Buckholz to place this, or to request that this item be placed on the admin agenda for next week. Second for Mr. Peters. Comment, Mr. Hoff.
Could you clarify what this item is?
This item would be an evaluation of the compensation for Sawyer County employees in light of the inability to attract qualified applicants, and what our alternatives would be to either raise or change the compensation package. I know you guys are thinking, man, we're just on vacation. You know, you come back and raise it, just shaking up the house. Mr. Peters.
I guess I have one other, I guess, maybe issue to to place in this, whether or not we have within the county sufficient housing in order to attract people who are going to be in these positions. That seems to have been a concern, and I know it's been a concern within Economic Development Corporation. And is there sufficient housing available? But that's not something that the county board can do anything about per se, but I think it may be an issue.
Right. Any other questions or comments on the motion? Clear.
Yeah, mostly for Tom. Is this, I mean, we do this during the budget process anyway. Is this taking things out of order, or is it going to be okay to do it now rather than wait? Or
Well, we do obviously do this during the budget process, and we do look at other counties and compare that to our compensation plan. You know, we did have a compensation study going on probably 6 years now, if not longer. But we do take a look at other counties, and especially when we have trouble hiring people, we compare what's going on in other counties. So, the motion that's before you is to turn this, or to give this to admin. So, I mean, the admin chair would have the option to put that on that agenda. We could do another compensation study. They would have to put that in the budget. That's another, $50,000 project, which could be done. There are other counties that are doing that. And when they do that, we look at those pieces of information as well. But it is part of the budget process, yes.
And the study that we did, what did you say, 6 years ago? You're right, it was quite expensive and created quite the emotional response from a lot of people. Are we fully funding what we originally agreed to in that scale, or are we still trying to play catch up with the original?
Well, we're always trying to play catch up. Yeah, I mean, that study, and we could do another study that would show that there are areas that are probably undercompensated. There was areas that were overcompensated, and that would happen again. We would show that, there's areas that, maybe we're falling behind in. And then the trick is, how do we fund that? So like the last time it was a couple $100,000 that we were underfunding compensation. So, to come up with a couple $100,000, you've got to cut something else. So you're cutting a service to increase compensation, which is an option. That certainly can be done. But that's the balance in trying to, provide services with the people that we have. We're obviously service driven, so it takes a lot of people to do what we do. We also deal with a consultant on the health insurance and the benefit plans, to build the benefit plans to do the best that we can do with the money that we have to afford, compensation. And then, as people look at applications and coming in to work to an area, do they look more at wages? Do they look at health insurance? We've got other things going for us, like the Wisconsin Retirement Fund and, some of these other things. But it looks like a lot of people these days just want that bottom dollar. They just want to know what they take home, and all these other benefits that we have. Do they value them as much as they used to? People more want time off, or flexible schedules, or other things besides compensation. Compensation is not the biggest driver, that it used to be. They want flexible schedules. Sometimes that works. In this area, it probably doesn't work. They're on a set schedule. So, there's different things that go into it that all balance out.
I guess that's why I'm questioning the need for this particular action now, because it's going on all the time during the whole budget process.
Just to make an effort to show that the county board is going to, publicly do something that's been doing every year, and that's try to address what is our shortages and see if there's a way to, invite the public in to understand why we don't have, people being housed out of county, why we don't have, we're providing our services, but we're doing it at an expense and probably with no real acknowledgement of what, you know, our officers are going through, what our social workers are going through, what our other employees are going through. So it's not a stunt. I really believe that this is something that we really need to start having this conversation. And usually it's the first one that always looks like it's something else, but you know, we need jailers, we need deputies, we need social workers, we need people to work in health services. We need these people because we're providing these services. And we have a lot of people who benefit from that and a lot of people who just take it for granted, and we can't take it for granted anymore. Chuck, you got a question?
I do not.
I
Okay.
have one question.
Buckle.
This is for Tom. So Tom, I guess, what is your recommendation for all this? You know, you're county administrator, you advise us.
Yeah, this is the crux of the problem of this county is how do we fund what we need to do? And, you know, when we go through the budget process, this is what we think about every day, all day, is how we, you know, we've heard discussions here about the trouble getting people. You'll sit in every other committee and hear the same thing. So, you know, as Mr. Schlueter was alluding to, even if we know all this, and we do, I mean, it's not like it's unknown. We know that there's areas that we're short in, but we have to balance that against what we can afford. And we're never going to be able to afford everything that we want to do and need to do. But I think, you know, this is a worthy topic of discussion, certainly, because, you know, if the board wants to do something different than what we're doing, you know, we've got to have that conversation to point us in a different direction so that we can go in a different direction. You know, do you want to increase compensation? And okay, and if you do, then, you know, what's going to fall by the wayside? You know, we're already trying to fund, you know, and we have been funding a percentage, either 1% or 1.5% increase for all employees every year, and moving that pay grade up as we move along. And that costs, you know, a few $100,000 to get done. So it's not like we aren't funding additional compensation every year. But again, I mean, the conversation needs to be had. And if you want to go in a different direction, we need to know what direction that is. And that's, you know, we're trying to outline in each of these committees what we're doing with the budget, and then presenting that to the county board, and then they can take a look at it and agree with it, or say, no, we need to do something different.
Final questions on the motion? Hearing no more questions, call for a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to number F. Sherry, you have the floor.
5 minutes?
5 minutes.
I thought I brought my report, but apparently I left it in the car. Everything is pretty much the same. Citations, I've issued a few more citations this month. I had a couple more dogs, I believe. I'm working with Polk County Humane Officer on a abandonment neglect case that got brought into our county for medical assistance, and then they just decided to leave their pet injured at the veterinarian. So I've got that one going on. I think the other one that was on there was a dog got out of a yard, and a pit bull and his owner were walking down the road, restrained, licensed, and vaccinated, and this little dog thought he was tough. He didn't win that fight, but that was... Pit bull was quite upset when I got there. The other dog was okay. I had an attack yesterday. Some folks at the library were walking, and a Akita jumped out of a car and used the other dog as a squeaky toy, and restitution was made to the little dog owner. And I mean, there was a lot of remorse, but the little dog was okay. So yeah, people that they just need to realize the level of aggression that's a possibility with the type of dog they've got. I think some of this could be, little education goes a long way. So I had a chat with both these folks in depth, and they were both very good.
Excellent. Any questions for animal control report? Chuck, you got any questions?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you for your report. Moving on to number 11, coroner's report. Coroner's not here, and we are all here. So moving on to number 12, emergency management. Ms. Sanchez.
Good morning.
just been working on the final grants for the state, getting those done. They're due at the end of this month, and then this goes to the end of October. And then getting the new grant cycle, and the state is on a different cycle than we are from October through September. I guess the biggest news I have is that if all goes well and the sun aligns with the moons, in 3 months, 29 days, 20 hours, 4 minutes, and 48 seconds, I will retire. I have my counter going.
Yeah, I'm worried about that, man.
So
you'll be under subpoena then to participate in his meetings. So put that on your counter too.
the military ruled that my husband's death was directly attributed to his military service. So therefore, I've been granted full military benefits, which includes insurance, which will allow me to retire. So, huh? Oh, I'm going to Michigan. I'll still be in the area. And I've talked with the sheriff, and I'll continue to do the volunteer coordination for this RT and keep that team running in case the new EM, if that is so hired, will help with disaster response as well. I'm just glad we're not Louisiana right now. But I think COVID has done in a lot of my constituents in emergency management, and many are vacating the field when we can, because they don't want to do this again. It took a toll on a lot of us. So.
Any questions for Ms. Sanchez? Chuck, you got any questions?
No, sir.
Thank you for your report. Moving on, number 13, criminal justice coordinating. The committee met on, I think it was the 13th of August. The Justice Point is assisting with and drafting a TAD grant, which is due to be, I think it's due sometime later this month. And there's a meeting next Thursday, which will provide an update on what the funding is. There's also part of the requirement that we had, or the part of the commitment we made with the second courthouse, was to provide a problem-solving court or another type of drug court. And so the state offered one of their representatives to come up and talk about what those requirements are. So that information will be forthcoming. Any questions on the CJCC? Moving on to number 14, ambulance service department report.
So good morning. A lot of my stuff is kind of the repeat. We still have open positions. You guys are just talking about staffing. Currently, we have one full-time medic position, one advanced position, and one EMT position. Our full-time medic position, we have somebody that's testing here that's internal mid-September, so we're expecting that that person will probably move up into a full-time medic position. And then I still get applications, people interested in positions that are medics. We're just having a harder time with the lower level providers. With that, of course, recruiting has just been heightened and difficult with COVID in general. People aren't going into the field. They're just short everywhere. And so, as the sheriff said, we have lots of competition. I know there are services that are paying emergency pay to try to get people in, bonuses and whatever else. However, it doesn't seem like it's working for them. So I just want to put that out there, that pay isn't always the answer either. But we have done everything on a recruiting side, I believe, that we can, which is flexible staffing, flexible schedules. You know, we work 2 shifts a week on our full-time side. Most places don't offer that. We've got certain schedules where, you know, you have 8 days off without taking vacation. So that is a huge draw in Sawyer County. Along with equipment wise, we have lots of nice equipment. You know, compared to when I started in 17, things have flipped over. We have, you know, advanced protocols. We have now the state stuff, so it's easy for students to come right in to the service. There's a lot of unique things here, and of course, people like challenge. You know, it's challenging environment because of geographics. You are going to take a lot longer for getting to hospitals. You see things that some places don't even see. And when it comes to your more experienced providers, they really want that. They want that challenge, not the 5 minutes to a hospital and are you going to do something? Are you not going to do something? We did have 2 people attend tactical EMS training to be part of the TEMS team. That makes the TEMS team up to 4 with the Sheriff's Department. They just completed that in August, the end of August here. We have Chequamegon Fat Tire, used to be Fat Tire, MTV event. They normally require 2 ambulances that we normally staff for them just for the race. That's coming up in September. There's still meetings going on being held about, what that looks like. I know Jan Vickerson, used to be Bayfield County. She runs the medical side for that. COVID is, it is what it is. We are seeing staffing shortages. We're seeing people leaving because of required vaccines on hospital systems. We have hospital systems trying to figure out what mandating COVID shots will look like or whatever else. And so we're kind of stuck in the middle of COVID right now, trying to figure out what regulations, if we come into a hospital, what do we have to wear at each facility. Strains on the hospital system are just astronomical. We got a request last week for interfacility. Everybody else was turning down. There was no flight. Respiratory failure going from Spooner to La Crosse as the closest facility. Every other facility is full. We are getting lots of Weston calls. Marshfield is trying to keep their Marshfield Hospital open for really, really serious patients. And with that, their fallback is Weston, which if you don't know where Weston is, that's right next to Wausau. Rochester's our options. It's just, I went on Friday, we went to the ER at Rice Lake, and the Huck said, yep, we've got patients, we're full, we got no place to put them. We got no place to move them to. We don't know what we're supposed to do. So I'm just letting you know that COVID is out there and it is a real threat. PPE, I've been advised by the suppliers again that they're going to have issues getting PPE. So they told me, you know what, order what you think you need, because there's no restrictions right now, but that will probably change. So we have ordered what we think we will need, and I know you still have some, so we're trying to stack up a little bit on that. Volume wise, transfers are still down for Hayward. But with that, I mean, we still get requests from Spooner, we get requests from Ladysmith, we get requests from Park Falls. I mean, you get these requests. The Spooner one we turned down the other day. There's not any, number one, they were on BiPAP. We don't do BiPAP. So, but I really feel bad because, you know, how are these patients getting there? We've had MCIs, as you guys heard last month, which I unfortunately was not here for. We have now had 2. We had one in July. We had another one with lightning. That's been a huge story in the press right now, which I believe went pretty well. You guys are all there. That's something we don't see every day. We don't see lightning. Lightning is something I've not seen in 15 years of EMS, lightning strikes. So all of those people seem to be doing very well, at least on the accounts of the news reports. Can I flow into the next thing?
Yes, sir.
So
what's that? Item B.
Okay. So since I was not here, I kind of listened to what was presented last month on the video. I have attached what I think you guys requested from the ambulance department. I did forward this on to Tom beginning of the week. I know he wasn't in to see if you wanted to move it to Corp Council, which was the request. What you have in front of you, or what I attached, was DHS 110 interfacility transports. That is their requirements for interfacility. The interesting part with DHS 110 is that it says on number 4, we only need 1 ambulance in the county for 911 coverage. That is not what we do. Our minimal staffing is always 2 fully staffed trucks. Fully staffed trucks means fully staffed. Full staff on board, you know, they are aboard. Now, what happened with our MCI with the 2-vehicle crash during our Lumberjack Fest, that took 2 trucks out pretty quick. We were told right away that we had 5 patients. We automatically did mutual aid. Our first mutual aid request was up to Great Divide. We were advised that they would send us 2 ambulances to assist. 10 minutes later, we won't be sending you to ambulances to assist. So then Birchwood was paged up for mutual aid. That's another mutual aid partner. So I have put in there our mutual aid and our MCI. That was a mass casualty incident, and what those protocols look like too. So then you guys can review them. But normally minimal staffing is two ambulances fully staffed in the county. We do, and I know I've talked about this before, we have what you could either call float truck, power truck. It's an additional advanced life support crew that we utilize 72 hours a week. So that is 6 days a week for 12 hours. The only day that it's not staffed is Wednesday. We have special staff for that. And that was in the thought process to help with interfacility. So we didn't have to call in people back up all the time, call coverage. And when they're not out on transfers, then they sit here up in Hayward, or they can float around if there's a crew that's out like the south. That was utilized that one day. But just so you know, we do normally staff 3, like right now we have 3 on. So 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. every day except Wednesday. But otherwise, that's what I have attached for you guys.
Can you talk about the aging report?
Aging report, that's one thing I don't have. I don't know if Tom, you want to talk about this, but we did talk a little bit in our first budget meeting about putting up an RFP for a new billing company. I'm just going to put that there. We haven't done any of it yet. I've still been looking at RFPs and trying to figure out what those look like for writing up. But that is in the process. This is the newest one. I mean, all I do is I normally compare. When it comes to budget, I think we are just hitting the mark on revenue, on income. But what we get a little worried about is when you look at the aging report, you start seeing accounts going higher than 90 days. 90 days is normally kind of where you look at for your insurance coming in. So when you start seeing some of these accounts going further than 90 days, that's going to be more of your struggle to get these in. And that's what kind of the billing company looks at. I don't know. It's pretty much looked the same the last few months that I've attached it. That's all my comments are on that one.
All right, so we have received from Nate the ambulance report, an aging report, and then a response to the inquiry that was raised at the August meeting. I'm going to open up comments from committee members first, and then we'll go to other people after that. So is there any comments or questions from committee members? Mr. Schluter.
You said it's in the process of an RFP for another, okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, and I don't know, Tom, if I remember right, I think we were looking at a couple months to actually create one and try to figure out what we wanted to put in one. And that was just a couple weeks ago. So we are starting the process. We're trying to look and see, because, you know, I think it's our due diligence to look. I mean, I don't know how long we've had this company. Since
long enough that they should be a little bit better at doing what we want them to do. We've had at least monthly meetings with the billing company to correct some of the anomalies that we have found. And we think that we should be seeing a better response on receivables. So this is a company that we went to probably a number of years ago now. Rusk County also uses them. We've been talking with Rusk County to see, you know, if they're happy and what they're doing, you know, with this company. But there are others out there, and I think we should explore and see if there's others that could do a better job. Obviously, if we don't collect everything that's due us, that hurts our revenue and hurts our budget. So just another area that we can, I think, make improvements to what we're doing now.
So is Rusk County happy or unhappy with this?
They're not totally happy, no.
And I don't, can you scroll down on that? Or sorry, Mike. So that's the number. When you start adding everything together, it's 2.6. Does that make you happy? It doesn't make me happy, but no. I don't think we'll see all of that. I mean, we've had questions on how much of this is write off. You know, we haven't gotten a good answer, you know? So that's what I really look at. And then the other thing that I look at too is your private self-pay. Those numbers scare me. And the question is, you know, how much of this is out in collections and how much of it can we actually figure that we're going to get? And that's where your biggest part of that number of that 2 point comes in. And so those are the ones that I really look at. And like I said, I really looked at the 90 days. What is going past 90 days? So.
Chuck, you got any questions for
at the beginning
for our ambulance director?
I do not.
Any questions or comments from the committee or from other people? Louise, this is the opportunity if you want to address the committee or any questions.
Yes. As you know, I was here last time asking for policy on out-of-county transfers. And I see that it's addressed in the policy, and it says that you cannot rely on mutual aid to cover for out-of-county. And I get it that you can't have an ambulance behind every tree. But I don't think it's reasonable to even guarantee that you can provide coverage on a lumberjack championship weekend at the peak of season with 2 fully staffed ambulances and still do out-of-county transfers. And I understand that the out-of-county transfers decisions are made to take them or not take them by the duty officer. And I don't even know what that is, a duty officer. I'm assuming it's someone who's working, who's probably responding, and they then have to make decisions on the fly about whether they're taking transfers or providing service in a community that is based on our tax dollar. So I still don't understand why anybody would send our units out of the county twice on the same day in the same period of time on a holiday. Well, not a holiday, but the peak season. And I look at the policy and there's no explanation, except for perhaps it was the duty officer's decision to do so. But I don't think we should leave it to the duty officer. I would like a policy that establishes it not to happen. And yes, an ambulance policy is filed at the state, and the state has agreed with it that truly in 1,500 square miles, if you have one ambulance that is staffed and ready to roll, you're covered. And that's the state's CYA, but that is not what the public expects. Not just the public, but indeed the tax-paying citizens of your community. And no, I don't believe that we can meet the need 100% of the time, 100% of the need. But I do believe that we need to hedge our bets against it happening. As you can see, the numbers increase and increase and increase and increase. And our pediatric population in the county, our census count went way up. Our pediatric population goes way up. And who do you want the service provided to? An out-of-county person who doesn't pay taxes here, and you saw the return on your expense, or the ones who pay taxes and live here and their children need you and you're not here? I think it needs to be taken care of, and I don't know how. I just don't believe that it should be allowed to be the duty officer's decision. That's like washing your hands of it, like Pilate. It should be your decision, this policy, this board's decision, and the full county board. It should be their decision to let our resources go out of county. And yes, I know those people need, but if that was a money-paying operation, don't you think there would be a bunch of private ambulance services out there providing it? And you know why there isn't? Because it's not a money-paying proposition. It's a money-losing up proposition. And while that happens, while you lose money on those out-of-county transfers, you deny your people, your tax-paying citizens, including children, the right to pain medication, the right to rampant transport, and that's just wrong. Let alone it could cause the death of many people. And we are, just like you say, short-handed. Go out there and see how many first responders there are in our communities that can help when the ambulances are gone. They're almost non-existent. There's only 3 licensed services in the whole county. And of those people, they're aging out. We can't even provide first responders through our fire departments, let alone ambulances. You need to look at the big picture here. And I hate to be preachy and I don't want to micromanage, but when I need an ambulance for one of mine and it doesn't come, I have a right to demand that you do something. And this, your policies, is not something. It is a washing of your hands and allowing the duty officer to make the decision. And indeed, you don't even know how many ambulance transports didn't get completed. He tells you how many runs they went on, but he doesn't tell you how many runs in his report were asked for and no ambulance could come. Where's that report? Am I the only one that got denied an ambulance? Are there many out there? And how many transfers are turned down? You don't even know that. So without information, how can you even provide the service? And yes, I know it's a toss-up between money and service. I hear that all the time. But this is a levy-breaking service, just like the sheriff's department is. And there is no excuse to not give them the money they need to provide what we need, because they can break the levy to do so. There is no levy limit on emergency service in our county, law and EMS. So where is the issue here? Lack of policy. Letting people run it by the seat of their pants with no direction, no leadership. And I'm sorry, but that's how I feel about this. And I'd be willing to answer any questions. And I really think it's important that you get an incomplete call report also from the sheriff's department and from the ambulance service. How many times do the sheriff's department have to stall or deny service to a caller because their offices are tied up the same way our ambulances are? Except that the sheriff's department has a legitimate concern because they're not out of county. Our ambulances are out of county. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So this is still under review. This is just this is the response that we were able to get from the ambulance director. So I don't want to.
I understand that, but I just felt strongly that after seeing it and knowing how the state, because I've done this, I am an advanced EMT, and I did work for the county for many years, and I understand how it goes, but to leave it to a duty officer decision is not correct. And after seeing that, I thought I had to bring that to your attention.
Thank you.
That can't work.
Thank you. Any other comments from the committee?
Just to clarify, the levy limits that we are under are for operations, and law enforcement expenses are under the levy limits. There is an exemption for countywide ambulance service that is outside of the levy limits. So to Louise's point, the ambulance service falls outside the levy limit. So you are able to fund that to your discretion.
Okay. Any other comments regarding the ambulance report? Chuck, you got anything?
I do not, thank you.
All right, moving on to number 15, future agenda items. Committee have anything they want on for next month's agenda? Hearing none. Moving on to number 16, correspondence reports, conferences, meetings, and other matters for discussion only. Chuck, you got anything you want to bring up?
Nope, just that about the sheriff. I want to look into the body scanner for the future.
Okay.
That is something that we are looking at, Mr. Van Ant. Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you, Tom.
Mr. Peters.
Since we have the information about the operational plan, how are we going to proceed? We're going to have,
at the last meeting, what we asked for and what Tom is working on with corporate counsel was to examine what that policy was and then come back with a recommendation based on the circumstances that were presented. So we're still waiting for that. And we're stepping this with, we don't want to instantly change policy on every circumstance, but we also want to analyze this so that we're comprehensively addressing some of the concerns and as many of the concerns as we can going forward. So I don't want people feeling defensive, but I also want people not feeling like they're not being respected for what their concerns are. So we are addressing this, but it's not a quick response. We're limited in what we can do, what we're able to do, and what we ought to do.
Thank you for that clarification. I just wanted to have a better understanding of how we were going to be either gathering information or carrying on discussions before that meeting, or as the information comes to us.
All I can say is I absolutely, completely agree. Mr. Schlegel, anything?
Just real briefly, have outside county agencies transported Sawyer County citizens in time of need? Transfers?
You mean for 911 calls or interfacility?
For the, whatever you're referring to when you say transfer.
That would be interfacility. Outside agencies, yes.
Yeah, okay, so
We don't, when we
help them, they help us.
Yes, when we get calls, we look at it two different ways. Normally, we take transfers for facilities that we send patients to. If those patients don't leave the ER, there is no room for other people to come in.
Right.
That's one way to look at it. We do have, our mutual aid partners. So let's say Rice Lake. Rice Lake will come in to help us if we need it. Ladysmith, Russ County will take transfers. They'll do BLS because that's their level, but they'll take them out of their facility. They'll come up and support us on the south end, just like we would.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Buckles, anything? No. All right. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.